maybe you've got zero point 0.1 Bitcoin and you think that's nothing. And have a look at how few people in the world are at your level, even at zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. And it would be kind of silly. I think it's kind of silly to compare yourself with someone who got in, maybe 5 years earlier than you and managed to buy a lot of Bitcoin, because it's kind of like looking at envying your neighbor. Your neighbor's got a bigger house and a nicer car and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, the goal is not to have the biggest, to be, well, in my view, is not to be the richest person. It's not to have the fanciest car. It's not to have the most Bitcoin, have the most money, all that kind of thing. It's a tool to enhance our lives. And I think we're going to get to the point where if you have 1 Bitcoin, um, and your neighbor has 100 Bitcoin, your neighbor's life isn't going to be amazingly better than yours because 1 Bitcoin will be plenty, you know.
I love that. There's also, I actually think about making a video on that, because there's a lot of studies that show that happiness does not correlate to wealth, and there's like a threshold, like a foundation of money that if you make that, every 10,000 euros above that, like it only improves your lifestyle a little bit, like
Yeah,
a very small amount of number. I don't know the numbers now. I don't want to say
yeah,
anything wrong, but there's like a certain like monthly income or like bank money in the bank. If you reach that, above that, you don't really gain anything more
you
in
don't
terms of
gain.
like life quality.
Exactly. So up to a certain point, wealth increases happiness and then it stops, and then there's negative returns. I mean, I don't think there's many of us in that category, but truly, truly wealthy people have problems that you and I can never dream of, you know. And we're talking like seriously wealthy. We're not just talking like, my house is worth 1 million or anything like that. We're talking about billionaires. They have problems that you and I would not dream of, and I do not envy. I do not envy people like that. I mean, I haven't had any direct experience, but I have family members who have, and these people, they are. I asked. I said, do these people that you deal with ever seem like they're happy? And the answer was no. They never came across as happy people. Some of them were okay, um, and we are not talking about like celebrities or singers or anything like that. We are talking about the people that you and I have never heard of. Um, and yeah, and I just I think about that and I think I don't think I'd want to be in their shoes, knowing the very very little that I know about how they live. You know,
Yeah, I think so too. It's
yeah,
interesting, negative returns of too much money. It's also
there are.
there's like a lot of trouble also and responsibilities. I mean, there's like nothing that I compare with, but like the having only the podcast and having that with getting it to being a bigger thing than I initially I just made a podcast because it was a next, like I had a full-time job and I just like wanted to have something on the side and talk with cool Bitcoiners. That was all it is. I never intended to make it my full-time thing. I was like ambitious. I wanted to make it something, but I never really saw it like it can be like this full-time thing in like a few months, and it got to be for some reason. And now I have two people working for me. I have this microseed thing where we are already 4 people, and there's like a company where I'm part owner. It's an American company. That's why I have like an Austrian holding, and I'm like, oh, like it got in such a small amount of time so much more complicated my life because I have to think about all those different
Yeah,
implications, and all of a sudden I have to pay like a tax guy that does my taxes. I always did my taxes myself,
yeah,
and I'm on such a small level. Like I don't make any money like compared to like big people, and I'm
yeah,
like, what amount of headache they have to have, and the problems that they come to them is I cannot even think
you,
about that.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Completely agree. I mean, I don't really have your experience because I haven't been doing this for very long, but from making a few videos with my mobile phone, which is how I started. I didn't have a camera or anything like that. I didn't even have a microphone. And making a few videos with my mobile phone, and all of a sudden, something blows up, and then all these people start contacting me, and then I realize that I have to make better content, and then I have to learn how to edit videos, and I have to learn about script writing, and I have to learn about negotiating with people who want to do business with me, and I have to look. It's been wild, like not in a bad way, in a good way. But talk about trial by fire. You know, you put yourself out there and you don't know any of this stuff is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, one day you just find yourself, on Robin's podcast that you've been watching for a year already. And somehow now he knows you exist.
Oh, thank you. That's too kind. But yeah, it's very true. And I'm looking forward to how this all shakes out, and like how life will challenge you more and more, and documenting online. And so I'm looking forward to your journey, and all of our Bitcoiner ones. And one question that I want to ask you before our end routine in the podcast is, because we talked about the internet thing, and how it looks now versus how the internet looks today. If we think about for 20, 30 years from now, and we think about Bitcoin succeeded is in the mass adoption there, how different do you think the world looks like in such a world, let's say 2050, and Bitcoin has succeeded in every shape and form that we wanted it to be?
Oh, that is a really hard question. To be quite honest with you, I have not thought about that. I've been much more present focused. I don't know. I hope it's a better world. I hope I'm not one of those people who think it's going to turn into utopia or anything like that. I'm more of a realist, I have to say. And I don't think the powers that be are going to give their power up that easily. And we're all just going to live in this happy, decentralized Bitcoin utopia or anything like that. I don't know that we're going to get to hyper Bitcoinization, um, because I don't know. I mean, look, it would be great, but that's a very, very different world from the one we live in now. And I think that there are too many vested interests. So I think it's maybe going to be something that runs in parallel for certain people who have recognized the problems, of our current, well, financial system, many systems, but our current financial system. Um, but I'm also not one of those people who think, oh, they're going to take over Bitcoin and it's all going to be ruined for us, and all these bad things are going to happen. I'm somewhere in between. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking on the fly here because I've never considered it.
And I also think things will take way longer than we think. If you think about, and also I think relating to the earlier conversation in the first like 10, 20 minutes, where we talked about the internet, I think it also depends on where in the world you are. It probably looks in the USA very different to maybe other parts of the world, or like to Portugal, or maybe Lugano
Yeah.
or Switzerland, or like El Salvador. I don't know. And so like it probably looks a lot different in where in the world you are, in terms of how sophisticated that Bitcoin adoption actually went.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Really cool. Then we come to the end routine of the podcast, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question: are you bullish or bearish on Bitcoin Treasury companies, and why?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have not. Okay, I'm going to put it this way. I'm not interested in treasury companies myself, because to me it's a wrapper of traditional finance. Um, so it's not something that I am 100% in self-custody Bitcoin, and that is the only thing that I'm interested in. So I'm not going to say bearish, because I don't want to see people, lose their because I know a lot of people are invested in these treasury companies, and I don't want to see anything bad happen. I don't know that I'm bullish either in terms of
Yeah, it's
actually being the one who is investing. Because to me, okay, so if I buy treasury stock, so for example, if I decide I want to buy MicroStrategy, I think a while ago I was just testing an app, I bought a couple of shares. So that's my entire vested interest in MicroStrategy. And then after that, I decided I wasn't interested in buying anymore. So I've got a very, very, very tiny interest. So to me, that is, if you're investing in treasury companies, you are only interested in making more fiat. That's the way that I view it. Unless those treasury companies can give you returns in Bitcoin, I don't know. I don't know much about how MicroStrategy works, but if you're just buying common shares, I think it's only you use fiat to buy them and then you sell them and you get fiat back, right? And I'm the same with ETFs, like BlackRock's ETF.
the first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro-seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro-seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because micro-seed is not selling the washer. micro-seed is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.